This conference will now be recorded.
So I want to welcome everybody. I am Carolyn Nichols, certified holistic nutritionist, and today we are going to talk about the diseases of the digestive system. And this is part two. So part one, we went over just basically how everything works from mouth to stool. And I'm going to just briefly go over that again as well, not in a great detail, but I do want to just explain a few things. So first of all, your digestive system, a wonderful, basically your GI tract, a hollow organ pretty much, or a series of, it's one big hollow organ pretty much, that goes from the mouth all the way to the anus, and has different parts of it along the way. So we have our mouth, our esophagus as we're going down, the salivary glands, of course, which, by the way, are loaded with digestive enzymes. So it's very important that we chew our food, because the more we chew, the more the saliva is produced, and then we actually don't need water to wash our meal down. Amazing. Anyway, esophagus, and then it goes into the stomach, and then we have our small intestine, our large intestine, which is actually smaller than our small intestine. We have our rectum, and then we have our anus and appendix, which some people don't have, unfortunately. Carries a lot of white blood cells, disease-fighting blood cells, in the appendix there. Now, there are three separate organs that are also involved in the digestive system, but are not part of that hollow tube of the GI tract, which is the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas. And I am not going to cover every single digestive disease today. I'm going to go over quite a few of them, but some of the main ones that I come across here when I work with people with different health issues. So just a reminder for those who were here last week, and maybe you're here for the first time today, you didn't see part one, but digestion begins in the mouth. So for all carbohydrates, and when I say carbohydrates, that doesn't mean bread and grains. Scientifically speaking, your fruits, your vegetables, your beans, those are all quote unquote carbohydrates. So the only thing that is not digested perfectly, I shouldn't say perfectly, but the only thing that's not affected too much by the digestive enzymes in your mouth is your pure proteins, okay? So it is so important either way. Your stomach does not have any teeth. That being said, we must chew our food, because if we don't chew our food, your body cannot liquefy what you've eaten properly, and your body does not get the nutrients out. And I got to tell you, since we're talking about diseases of the digestive system, this is a major problem, not chewing our food, for many, many, many diseases in the digestive system, because then the food goes almost whole into the intestinal tract where it's not supposed to be whole like that. It can create irritation in the lining. So we've got to chew our food to liquid. Usually that's about 30 chews before we swallow. So very important for us to understand that the esophagus is incredibly important as far as disease goes, because this is mouth, and this is where digestion, stage 2 of digestion, really begins. But the muscles contract, peristalsis begins to push that food down. Now, a lot of people, of course, will feel like they have heartburn or, stomach acids, or acid reflux. So there's a couple reasons for this. So number one, there is a lot of stomach acids that come out very strong in the digestive system to digest food. So that is important, because when those digestive enzymes are coming out, there is a sphincter that is here that keeps the acid inside the stomach. But through stress or poor eating, or foods that irritate the lining and the cells, especially in the esophagus, that sphincter can get worn down, and then the acid can come back up very easily. So a lot of people will experience this heartburn generally because the stomach acid is leaving from the stomach and going up and hitting the esophagus when it absolutely should not be. So that's, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about how to heal this acid reflux issue, but I just want to kind of preface this disease. It's not really a disease, but this health issue with the acid reflux is that's usually, not always, but that's usually the cause. And I'll tell you that acid reflux can feel really bad. For some people, I've talked to some clients, they thought they were having a heart attack. And it's not a heart attack. It was just this like burning and this problematic pressure feeling. And it's basically inflammation. Okay, so that's important to know. The other thing, as I go through here, we're going to go into right away into diseases inside the intestinal tract and the colon. So you see these two pictures here. We've got Crohn's versus colitis. So ulcerative colitis affects the large intestine or the colon. So the inflammation, it involves the lining of the colon. So you can see through this picture with colitis, it's like this big ulcer that usually lines the colon, but it's in a concentrated area. Lots of diarrhea, you'll see blood in the stool, lots of abdominal pain, urgency to urinate, urgency to use the bathroom. Many people experience weight loss, and the reason for that is that their body's not absorbing nutrients. So because your body's not absorbing nutrients, you become malnourished. So with colitis, again, it's usually in a concentrated area, and most people notice it right away in the stools. And sometimes there's blood in the stool, sometimes there's blood and mucus in the stool, and it leads to a lot of loose stools and a lot of pain. It can be very, very painful if somebody has colitis or ulcerative colitis and they're having a flare-up. So it's very important that you take care of this disease right away. Now, when we're talking Crohn's disease, now we're talking a disease that can affect all areas of the digestive tract. So it's similar to that of colitis in the way that it has the abrasions on the lining of the, whether it's the colon or whether it's the small intestine. However, it can go anywhere. This Crohn's disease can affect anywhere from the mouth to the anus, and it can be in multiple places. It's not necessarily in one place. And it can even penetrate through the intestinal wall to involve the connective tissues that are surrounding the stomach gut and the lining. So this can create a lot of narrowing in the intestinal tract and abscess formation. There's lots of abnormal connections from the bowel to the structures. So it's very important, again, that in order for us to have a healthy system, we really need to dump the garbage properly, right? You can't have a super clean house and the garbage is overflowing or extremely stinky because there's bad food in there and it can't get changed. So that makes no difference. You know, you have a clean house, you walk in and it stinks because no one's changed the garbage. So it's very important for you or I to know and understand that emptying our bowels properly and having a healthy bowel system is imperative in order for us to have a healthy bloodstream. Because if you do not have a healthy bowel system, many times or most times or all the time really, those toxins back up into the bloodstream. And that is a toxic mess. So it is very important that if you do have such health issues, and we'll talk about some of the reasons why shortly, but if you do have some of these issues, that you get it taken care of before it becomes seriously chronic. Because if we cannot digest and expel properly, then of course it's hard to heal anything else, because especially in my business, food is your medicine. And when you have issues like this, the nutrients that you're eating aren't being used properly because there's just too many areas in the colon that can't properly function. Let's move on to diverticulitis. So what is diverticulitis? So the inner layer of your intestinal tract pushes weak spots in the outer lining. So basically, if you can understand that your food, your waste matter, your fiber, through a peristalsis movement, the contraction of the muscles pushes food all the way from, basically from the esophagus, as soon as you swallow, through the stomach. Now it's going through the intestinal tract, then it's going through the colon. It's really amazing this doesn't run on batteries. Like, it's really incredible that all of these contractions happen all by itself. I'm just fascinated with the human body. But anyway, all of that being saying is that sometimes if you have weak spots in your intestinal lining, as that food is being pushed through, sometimes you can have bulges in your intestinal tract, sometimes inside, sometimes outside, but it's like making little pouches, and it most often happens in the colon and the lower part of your large intestinal tract. Now, why would that part become weak? That's a question, and we're going to answer that soon. Now, just because, I want you guys to get this and see and understand that, just because you have diverticulum or diverticuli that are pouching, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have diverticulitis. When the diverticula become inflamed or infected, that's when we have diverticulitis. Completely different than Crohn's, however, and colitis, as we talked about, completely different. However, I want you to understand that all of this is inflammation. So all of this is basically your system being inflamed. Lots of inflammation going on, irritation. And the reason why mucus would then be found in your stools is that whenever you have inflammation in the body, your body's way of protecting you and protecting the organs and protecting things around it is by creating mucus. It creates it as a barrier to protect your body from the inflammation. Well, that's really nice, but then we feel mucus congested, we see mucus coming out of our colon, and so these are signs that there is a lot of inflammation going on inside the body. Now, just moving on from there, we have other organs in our body, and mostly I want to focus, we have our liver, we have our gallbladder, and we have our pancreas. So just two things I want to focus on here most of all, understanding the roles, though I'll just mention that, is that we talked about last week that your pancreas produces a lot of digestive enzymes in order that get passed into the intestinal tract to help complete that digestion process. So your pancreas is incredibly important, and some people have even if you have diabetes, which is not really a digestion disease, but it relies a lot on your pancreas to make sure it's producing that insulin, right? So you do not want to have any diseases in the pancreas because that can create a lot of issues for digestion. I'm not going to focus much on the pancreas, but the other two organs, the liver and the gallbladder, are extremely important. The liver produces bile, and that bile is stored in the gallbladder. Now, this is extremely important because your liver, by the way, which is just an incredible filter for your bloodstream multiple times through the day. If you have trouble with your liver, you are going to have trouble with your digestive system. Your digestive system is like the hub of everything because all those nutrients that are being broken down from your food, a lot of them go to the liver to be packaged up to be sent to the right places. So your liver is really the hub. But truthfully, your digestive system has, I would say, outside of the brain, which tells the digestive system what to do, the most important. Because if your digestive system is not working right, then nothing else is going to work properly, because we can't get the nutrients to help heal these diseases. So let's just talk about this bile for a second. Your gallbladder actually stores the bile, but the beauty of the gallbladder is that all by itself, it regulates the bile, and bile is needed to digest any foods with fats in it generally. So whether that's good fats like nuts, seeds, avocado, your flax, or whether that's French fries or beef, chicken, or anything with saturated fat, the bile is needed. And through a bile duct, that bile gets regulated into the intestinal tract. Now, I know that many people do not have a gallbladder, maybe even some that are listening right now. And it doesn't mean that you won't get the bile. It's just that, because you can see those green branches, they come from the liver, then it gets stored in the gallbladder, and then it goes into the intestinal tract. Well, those without a gallbladder, you don't get the regulation. So the liver produces it, and the bile's not always getting there at the right time because, the moderator is not there. So can you function and live without a gallbladder? Yes, absolutely. Can you, and would you have digestion issues? I have not met a person without a gallbladder that doesn't have digestion issues. So that's the reality. So the bile also, by the way, it carries wastes like cholesterol, like bilirubin, that your body, basically your cells live and die in about 120 days. So of course the spleen is great, is mostly the recycler to get that out. But some of the byproduct of these cells that die also get passed through and into that bile. So your bile carries waste-like matter, extra cholesterol that needs to get rid of, the waste from the red blood cells that are broken down. And if there's too many of these, my friends, that's when we can have gallstones in our gallbladders. So that becomes a problem. So that's why your doctor may, if you have eat a lot of fatty food that can contain a lot of cholesterol, they would tell you have to stay away from those. Now, I'll tell you that we have had incredible success. In fact, never a fail of naturally getting people to get their gallstones out of their body naturally without having to go through surgery. And praise the Lord, over the last couple of years, we have saved 3 people from losing their gallbladder. Their doctors told them they're going to need to remove it. We did some natural remedies. They go back to the doctor and like, hey, all your stones are gone. Oh, I don't think you know. Oh, no, I pooped them out. No, that's not possible, says the doctor. But yes, it is possible. So I just want you to know that there pretty much is a natural remedy for every disease that I know anyways. So you could have, first of all, if you're getting pain in your upper stomach, often on the right-hand side or just under your ribs, or pain in your right shoulder, your back, sometimes that could be a sign, first of all, of gas, of heartburn. But if it doesn't go away and it persists and persists and persists, it is very possible that you have gallstones. Sometimes you can have an upset stomach. Sometimes you can have some vomiting. Now, who has gallstones? Well, definitely genetics has a role to play, but it's less than 10%. Our lifestyle pulls the trigger. So you could have that genetically, have a family history of that. But most likely, if you look at your family history and how your family has been eating, that could be the contributing factor. Maybe you're still eating like your parents, and that's why they have gallstones and you have gallstones. But again, it does have a 10% role to play. More women than men have gallstones, believe it or not. More men have kidney stones. Women over age 40 tends to have a higher rate of gallstones. If you are obese, if you have a diet high in fat and cholesterol, believe it or not, but if you do any kind of hormone replacement therapy, or if you're using birth control pills, and we'll talk in a moment about how hormones have an effect on anything. And the other thing as well, I mean, if you have a sedentary lifestyle, if you don't exercise very much, all of these things can play a factor with pretty much every disease. But one thing you may not know is that if you fast a lot, if you do a lot of fasting, like basically, if you are losing weight too fast, I should say. And so people that do long periods of fasting that have a lot of weight on their body can sometimes, and I had a person here do a 30-day juice fast, and believe me, I did not recommend it. I actually asked them not to do it. I didn't think it was a good idea, but they were insistent about it. And when you know, like a month later, they had horrendous stones and so much pain, and it was just a mess for them. Because if you're losing fat too quickly, all of that cholesterol can build up and create more stones. So yes, I know some people are overweight and they're just like, how much weight can I lose in 1 month? Well, I don't like people to lose much more than like 2 or 3 pounds a week. Sure, when you start out, maybe you do a fast, you're gonna lose more. But if you're losing more than 2 or 3 pounds a week, you could create a crisis, a health crisis in your system because you're just shedding too much fat too quickly and your body can't get rid of it fast enough, and then it can build up into stones. So that is also important to know. Ulcers are also another disease of the digestive system. So you could have peptic ulcers, which generally are in the stomach. So it's an abrasion in the stomach lining that is like raw and tender to the touch, and it hurts whether you eat, whether you drink, whether you're not eating or not drinking. It's painful. And there are certain foods that irritate it, foods that are high in acidity, foods that are high in saturated fats can irritate it. So peptic ulcers is another one. And generally, you know, ulcerative colitis is all around the other organs, the intestinal tract, mostly the colon. But a peptic ulcer is one that is inside the stomach. And there are many over-the-counter remedies that I don't recommend. They do not, a lot of times what your doctor will do is they will recommend that, okay, so, you know, all of the acids you're using to digest the foods are also irritating your ulcer. So you'll end up taking a medication, the same thing for acid reflux, that calms down your stomach acids. Well, that's not very good if I'm trying to digest food, is it? So that creates another issue where you're not digesting food properly because you're taking a medication that's telling your acids to back off. So all of this turns into a vicious cycle, which, believe it or not, my friends, can totally be fixed, if not reversed, healed by using a few natural remedies. So these peptic ulcers can include a number of things, gastric ulcers, and also you could have on like the upper part of your intestinal tract can be another type of an ulcer. So they're not always just right in your stomach, but those are the most common. And the most common causes of peptic ulcers, believe it or not, comes with the infection of bacteria, H. pylori, which I know some people have experienced, but they're not, it's generally, believe it or not, we'll talk about it, but this is a very bad bacterial infection that can cause an actual ulcer if that bacteria is not resolved and fixed. And unfortunately, so unfortunate, the answer for a lot of doctors, they will give you antibiotics to take care of that bacterial infection of H. pylori, and that creates so much issues. You know, many times we take antibiotics like it's nothing. Oh, just take an antibiotic. Well, it didn't work, take another round. It's like chemotherapy for the body. It kills all the good while it's trying to get the bad. And it's really hard to get that good bacteria flora back into the system, which brings me to my next slide, which is so important that in order for the body to have essential digestion, proper bowel movements, no bloating. And I want you to kind of look at this picture of where do you see the stomach, which is over here, And where do you see the intestinal tract, which is over here? Most people have a lot of gas and bloating, and it's not in the stomach. It's not right under the rib cage. It's usually lower down because it's what's happening through the process of digestion. Food stays in the stomach for a short period of time, anywhere from 4 to 5 hours, 6, usually at the most for a big meal. But it's the intestinal tract that ends up being inflamed because of some of the way that we're eating or some of the foods that we're eating. So that being said, is that it's so important that we have a good microbiome. Is absolutely essential for digestion, for nutrient absorption, for bowel movement. And folks, almost 80% of your and my immune system lies within the walls of our intestinal tract. That is so important because it is certain number of these billions of different kind of probiotics, the bacteria that lines that are important building blocks for certain immune cells. So it is absolutely essential that if you want to have a strong immune system, you want to have a good blood system, you want to have good nutrient absorption, we have to have good microbiome. We have to have wonderful, good bacteria flora inside our stomach, gut, and our intestinal tract. Now, if you go back in your mind to those pictures with the ulcers and with the colitis and with the diverticulitis, wherever you saw those red areas, there is just no way bacteria can form there because it's a sore. It doesn't create a good environment for healthy bacteria to be there. So anybody with these diseases of their digestive system is going to be missing the bacteria in those areas. And I know we have like almost 30 feet of an intestinal tract, but yes, every part of it is needed, and every part of it, the bacteria is needed. So if any part of it is missing or is going through a sore or inflammation, it's going to become a problem for nutrient absorption, for bowel movement, for digestion, for gas, for bloating. So before I start giving you hope, because there is hope if you're experiencing any of these issues, let's just talk about IBS. So I just want you to understand that IBS is kind of the term that a doctor will give you if they're saying that, you know what, this is not Crohn's, this is not diverticulitis, we've checked you out, you don't have any of these issues. But you know, you do have, if you just mute your microphones, please. So, you know, you're having these digestion issues. I don't know exactly what it is. That's when IBS becomes your diagnosis, because you're having a lot of bloating, you're having diarrhea, sometimes you have constipation, you're having abdominal pain. So it becomes IBS, an irritable bowel syndrome. And so because it's not really specific, some people can't eat any beans, other people can eat beans. Some people can't eat any raw food or salads, other people can. So it's very different for a lot of people, but there's a lot of different ways and things you can do to help it, which we will talk in a moment about. So the last sort of digestive disease that I want to go through is hemorrhoids, because this is like, you know, as we're going down from the mouth to the anus, this can create a lot of issues. So the hemorrhoids are there when you can see that part of the rectum, part of the anus here, has internal structures that again become inflamed. So sometimes they're on the outside, but sometimes they're on the inside. And it becomes very painful because you can imagine that the bowel movement, the feces, which is already going to be somewhat irritating, it is waste product, is going to rub against, push against this already irritated internal hemorrhoid or external hemorrhoid. Now, how does this happen? Generally, if you're not having very good bowel movement, if you're constantly straining all the time, because you just don't have enough fiber in your diet, if you constantly have to push your bowel movements out, you are going to create inflammation. You are going to blow up these structures inside your by your rectum that are going to become inflamed. And now the feces is moving past there and it's irritating it. So now it becomes red and sore. And then sometimes it also starts to bleed. So there are definitely things you can do, but the best answer, folks, for anything else is that we have a diet that is rich in healthy fibers. Because if we can have a diet that's rich in healthy fibers, we will not need to strain. We will not need to push. It wouldn't be a problem as you pee, you poo, as one of my clients said. It's amazing now. I pee and then I poo. No strain. And that was totally new for him because he was straining all his life. But when you can change your diet, it really makes a big, big difference. I want to show you this because the nutrient absorption is so important, and many people are dealing with what's called a leaky gut syndrome. I said that was my last disease, but I am wrong. I wanted to talk a little bit about leaky gut. And what is leaky gut? Well, what happens is when food gets digested, your body's taking that apple or those grains or that salad, whatever it is, down to its molecular state, so that it can take the vitamin C, package it up, and bring it through the bloodstream. The bloodstream is taking food molecules. It doesn't take food particles. It takes food molecules into the bloodstream through small little holes in the intestinal wall. And that's how it has to be so small, and it goes through nutrient absorption. So it's really incredible. And the bacteria in your gut helps with this nutrient absorption as well, helps to carry it out and bring it through the bloodstream. It's just really amazing how the human body works. So that being said, is that if you have holes in your intestinal tract that are bigger than the small little tiny holes that the food is supposed to go out through, if it's anything bigger that's going to let out more than a molecule, the molecules are so teeny weeny tiny seen under a microscope, then food particles leave and go into the bloodstream. And then your body is like, intruder, intruder, there's this thing in here. And it's a strawberry, say. Now, there's a strawberry in our system, but it's not supposed to be in the bloodstream. It's supposed to be in the intestinal tract, but it escaped because we have a leaky gut. We have a hole that's too big and food has left rather than the molecules. That's a problem because then your body looked at that or saw that strawberry in the bloodstream, called it an intruder, and every time you eat a strawberry, you have a horrible allergic reaction because of leaky gut. So a lot of people that have allergies are also known to have a leaky gut syndrome. And how does this happen? How do we get holes in our intestinal tract? I'm going to get to that. So I hope you can see this picture. This picture just gives you an idea about the vagus nerve. Why am I talking about this now? Because now I'm going to wrap this up and give you some of the causes, reasons for a lot of these digestive systems, and then also try to give you some hope, because there is hope for everybody. So vagus nerve is this incredible nerve that goes from the brain, and it goes, you could see it passes through the lungs, the heart, but look where it ends up, in the stomach and the intestinal tract. Amazing. Why am I talking about this vagus nerve? Because, folks, I want to tell you something, that every time you and I get stressed out, go under a lot of emotional stress, have some negative thoughts, don't get enough sleep, worry about things, get anxious, our body releases cortisol. It sure does. And that cortisol uses that vagus nerve to dump it everywhere. Dumps it through the lungs, and then we have shortness of breath and could have an anxiety attack. Our heart could start beating, palpitations. But wow, look at all of these branches at the bottom. it will dump and dump into your intestinal tract. And guess what this cortisol will do? You got it. It kills all that good bacteria. And then when the bacteria is not there, it's just cortisol and the stomach or intestinal lining, and they meet. And guess who wins the fight? Cortisol sure does, because the bacteria aren't there to protect it anymore because it killed it first. And then we start getting abrasions on the stomach lining, and then it's called an ulcer. Or, of course, it weakens some of the areas of the intestinal tract, and then the bulges start coming out, and we have diverticulitis. Or we get Crohn's, or we get colitis. So all of it, no matter what we're going to say, stress is the main factor. And a lot of people have IBS or bloating because they don't have that good bacteria to help form their bowel movement and to help digest the food. So things start to irritate and we get bloated. There is not a person. I mean, I have been at the Energy Shack for 5 years and studying with and working with clients before the Energy Shack opened. I have never met somebody with digestion issues that has not had either an extremely high stressful period in their life, like emotionally stressful period, or is not currently under stress. I've never met somebody. In fact, I thought I met somebody, and he had horrible digestion issues, mucus and blood every single day. He is an artist, a musician, and he's like the most chill, laid back person you have ever met. And I was really confused because I kept asking him, like, a month we're together now. I'm just like, and you're not stressed because this is so strange that it's not fixing. Well, I figured out this was well before COVID. He went to Cuba for a vacation and then came back. And he said, Carolyn, it's really weird. When I was in Cuba, I had zero digestion issues and my stools were perfect. I didn't have blood or mucus once. Do you think it's the food there? And I said, no, I don't think it's the food there. Can you tell me something? Were you like extremely happy in Cuba? He's like, of course. I am like from South America. I love Cuba. I love being in South America. I hate Toronto. I hate being here. I hate living here. I was forced to live here because my parents moved here recently. But I don't like Toronto. Every day I wake up and I say, I hate this city. I'm like, oh, you are stressed. So folks, guaranteed, if you have stress in your life, you are going to have digestion issues. And I'm not just talking about, I have a lot of things to do. I'm talking about feeling emotionally stressed. That guy will act laid back and sing his songs, but inside, he's so miserable. And that internal misery, anxiety, stress is what really causes these digestion issues. Water, folks, is so important to keep the system nourished and hydrated. Many times we are having these issues because we have a lot of dehydration going on in cells, and the bacteria, of course, has a problem with growing. And then as well, they can get very irritated because water actually, believe it or not, acts as a protectant. But here's the biggest thing about water is that it flushes toxins. So if we have thick blood, toxins sit. When toxins sit, they create abrasions. It's very important that we don't drink with our meals, but 1 to 2 hours after we eat, we start drinking water. And if you drink while you're eating, you are creating digestion issues, especially bloating, and it really irritates acid reflux. Fiber is so important. Now, I would tell you that those who are struggling with diverticulitis, Crohn's, IBS, fiber can be irritating, but it has to be consumed in a proper way. If you have, depending on what your issues are, you need lots of fiber in your diet, but the right kind of fiber. If you're experiencing seriously chronic or even acute digestion issues, not the, just gas and bloating, but you have IBS or you have Crohn's or diverticulitis, or you're going through a hemorrhoid flare-up, You cannot eat salads right at that moment. Although they're loaded with fiber, you cannot eat them right now because that is just too much hard fibers. But you will want to take your vegetables, make them soft so the fibers are soft. And for those digestion issues, which I tell you, I have never had a client with these digestion issues that didn't leave my care feeling so much better. I will never wrap a program up with somebody unless their mucus, their blood has got in their stool, and they're not feeling the pain anymore. And so this is 100% success rate for us here at the Energy Shack. But as much as I want my clients and I want everyone listening to make large bowls of fruit and big salads part of their everyday, if you're experiencing these issues, you can't really eat them right now, especially like raw cabbage and raw kale and raw broccoli. That is a disaster. That is a recipe for lots more pain and inflammation. But you need those foods well cooked. Now, if you have beans, they're harder to digest and they can create gassing. So you'd have to pull back on those. But what I will tell you is that if you're not experiencing digestion issues and you don't want to, let me help you understand that when you eat chicken, when you eat fish, when you eat beef, if you eat pork, when you eat eggs, these things are pure protein with no fiber. So it is fiber that keeps your colon clean. It is fiber that helps to pull toxins out of your body. And if you're not getting enough fiber, you're going to have a lot of toxic buildup in your colon. Your bowels are not going to move. And if those bowels are moving properly and those toxins are sitting, it's going to create irritation. So it is so important that your proteins, your nutrients, they come from plant sources. And I highly recommend, don't know if you're new and you've never met me before, but I really promote a plant-based diet. So, and by the way, folks, you seem to all be listening incredibly well. What good students you are, but the chat is empty. And if you have questions, because I'm just about to wrap up, please do put it in the chat. And I'm going to take the last 10 minutes to answer any of your questions that you have. So a couple things I want you to know is that as far as healing power goes, this is a slippery elm that you see in the left-hand corner. So slippery elm found in its powder form can be extremely healing for the digestive system. So it just naturally has properties that does that. So you can find slippery elm, and I usually do a bit of a mixture with people with a little bit of golden seal and myrrh. So anyway, of course, doing any one of our programs, I can help you with those natural remedies. You can also just become an Energy Shack member for as little as $10 a month, so that you can also get natural remedies week to week. Cabbage, I just want to talk about cabbage for a second, because surprisingly, cabbage, for anybody going through digestion issues, if you make like a coleslaw or just grate your cabbage and eat it raw, that is a recipe for a flare-up. Like, you cannot eat raw cabbage if you have any of those, most of those issues that I've explained. But juiced cabbage is so healing for the stomach lining. It's really incredible. So if you juice like equal parts of carrot and equal parts of cabbage and drink that, it will feel a little irritating in the beginning. But if you do a good, about 7 to 10 days of a glass of cabbage juice for, like I said, about 7 to 10 days, but I wouldn't do cabbage juice straight. It's so potent. I would mix it half and half carrot juice, half cabbage juice. So cabbage juiced heals the stomach lining so well. And lastly, of course, there are a lot of different remedies, but I just want to share a few with you today. Aloe. Aloe is an incredibly healing plant. In fact, it is the logo on the Energy Shack wall. And, aloe is incredibly healing in so many ways. I love that it's available, and I love that it's cheap, because healing should be affordable and available for everyone. So it's the inner fillet, it's that inner gel that is extremely healing for the stomach lining. However, you can't just mix aloe in your smoothies or mix it up with a bunch of water and drink it right before you eat. You have to have pure aloe. And I recommend that it's easier to just get it by buying, you know, Lily of the Desert is a great brand. And I know there's some preservatives in it, but it still does great healing. But you have to drink it on a completely empty stomach, minimum 15 to 30 minutes away from any other food or drink. So I recommend that of course, I usually recommend that people start their day with a glass of warm water with lemon juice, but not everybody can do that. Lemon can irritate a lot of things when you have digestion issues. So before you even do your lemon, if you can do the lemon, and please understand that natural remedies are good if you're suffering with these issues. If you're listening just to get information for yourself or your friend or just general knowledge, please don't start drinking cabbage and carrot juice. Please don't go and start having aloe. These things should only be used if you're suffering with these issues. So you drink that about like first thing in the morning. And of course, I recommend 2 bigger meals in the day. So at night, you're not eating. At night, your body is going through your body is going through fasting at night. You have some aloe, you have a light potato broth maybe, and then you go to bed and let the aloe do its work. Now, while it's sleeping, you wake up, your stomach's hungry and empty, your stomach's hungry and empty, and now you are going to go through another round of aloe, just like a quarter or a half cup. So aloe is like the secret healing power for most, not all, but most of these diseases. So we've talked a lot about stools, and I just want you to look at the Bristol stool chart because this speaks a lot about what's going on in the digestive system. If you have type 1, 2, or 3, you are most likely not drinking enough water in your diet. If you have type 5, 6, or 7, we've got a whole lot of inflammation. And if you're having type 1, 2, or 3, you are going to have inflammation very soon because the toxins are sitting in the bowels creating a lot of inflammation. So it's very important that you speak to somebody like myself. I do nutritional consultations. If your bowels are not looking like a smooth sausage or snake, I like to say that it should look like a nice long brown banana in the toilet. It shouldn't float, it shouldn't sink, it should kind of be in between, and it shouldn't have, you should not have any trouble getting it out. And I do want to tell you that your anus and your rectum are not lined up when you sit down on a toilet. Okay, we were not designed to sit and poop. We were designed as human beings to squat. So that's how the anus and rectum are lined up. So it's important. I know that it would become a major problem if we all started running outside and squatting behind the trees. But what I recommend is that you would get a stool or at least lift your legs up on the toilet, because a lot of people with constipation have just made this one simple change of lifting their legs, and all of a sudden we have a smooth move. All right. It was nice to hear a little bit of laughter there because, you know, you guys are all so quiet because I told you to put yourself on mute. But it's nice to not just entertain myself. Lastly, just before I get to your questions, I just do want you to understand that your hormones and your nerve glands are like, boy, this is everything. It helps, you know, through your nerves, your brain gets signals as to which part of the, you know, which digestive enzymes is going to tell the pancreas to bring in, when to bring in the bile, you know, when to take out the nutrients. Like your nervous system is so important to be in healthy and functioning in order for our digestive system to be working. So it's very important that we do have a healthy nervous system. And I hate to be a resounding symbol, but I do want to just remind you again that if you're under a lot of stress, your nervous system is shot. And if your nervous system is shot, your digestive system is going to have a lot of trouble. But hormones are transmitted through the bloodstream, and there's incredible, your hormones play a very big role with even telling, like even giving hunger signals. So it's so important that we have healthy hormones, and hormones are balanced between late hours, like around 9 p.m. to about 1 a.m. in the morning. Most of us during that time are not sleeping for hormones to be balanced. Most of us are awake and digesting food. It's a problem because that's when hormones are supposed to be balanced. So I'm saying this to say that if you're having an imbalance of hormones, or you're having a lot of stress in your stress and your nervous system is a little bit shot, you are going to have digestive issues, because all of this, you know, the ankle bone is connected to the knee bone. All of this goes together. I can't share that testimonial because we're just having so much trouble with me sharing testimonies for some reason, and everyone hearing them. Nobody seems to hear them except me, and I've already heard them before. So you can find some great testimonies anyways on our YouTube page, and I have a lot of little short videos on YouTube page as well. If you haven't been to our YouTube, it's just Energy Shack Juice Bar. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, so please follow us there if you want to get more information, or, you know, just tidbits of truth. And where can you go from here? If you or someone you know is struggling with any health issue, you can book a consultation. It's $35 for 30 minutes, and we're very thorough. It's not just myself as a nutritionist on staff, but we really give you as much verbal information as we can. And should you want to do a program with the Energy Shack, believe it or not, it starts at just $150. It's very affordable, and that gives you a map book, gives you the recipes, it gives you the natural remedies, it gives you everything you need to do this program. We have a bunch of other programs as well that can give you a lot more guidance, but for $150, you get everything you need to know, including the number of your nutritionist, so that should you have any issues, you can call your nutritionist over the next 30 days. And then I also just want to let you know that next Thursday, we're going to be having a free question and answer time with all of our subscribers. So we have a membership program. It starts at just $10 a month. And if you would like the opportunity to just throw out your nutrition questions on any subject, we do that once a month, but you also get natural remedies. You also get sometimes recipes. So once a week, you're going to get something in your inbox from myself personally, Energy Shack approved, nutritionist approved. So that is just a fantastic way to just stay connected, stay in touch, and also to be able to stay healthy the right way. And then lastly, I just want you to know that if you would like to continue on the road to healing, but you don't think you can cook the food yourself, we have a chef, Delectable by Zarla Jane, who makes all the meals for you along the lines of health. She cooks exclusively for my clients. She cooks for other clients, but I use her exclusively because no fake meats, no gluten, every recipe and sauce made from scratch. It's amazing. So with that being said, folks, thank you very much for listening. I'm going to jump into the chat. I see a few questions as well. So is there such a thing as too much fiber? Can I use psyllium to help acid reflux relief? So, you know, there is such a thing as too much water. There is such a thing, the 8 laws of health. One of the laws of health is temperance, and temperance is not moderation. Temperance is staying away from harmful things, but being moderate with good things. So just to answer that question, that yes, there is such a thing as too much fiber, and too much of the wrong fiber too. If you're eating a lot of wheat products to get your fiber, that can be a problem. But of course, your colon you don't want it to blow up too much. And you shouldn't have to have psyllium fiber every day to get bowels moving. The fiber that you need is found in 2 meals a day. If you eat properly in the lines of health, which is a big breakfast in the morning and then some fruits afterwards and a big salad at lunchtime with a cooked meal afterwards, that's plenty of fiber. But for some people, they may need some psyllium just in the beginning to get their bowels going. And psyllium fiber, I don't find very helpful for acid reflux. I would just ask you guys just to put your mutes on, please. But I don't find that psyllium fiber is as helpful for acid reflux as is aloe. Aloe is like almost a sure cure for acid reflux. However, if you're using the aloe, like I said, on an empty stomach in the morning, but you continue to eat and drink at the same time, you continue to snack all through the day, you continue to, drink coffee, you're not going to fix it. You have to also change the diet in order for the natural remedies to work. So somebody else asked a question. They asked if any digestive issues can arise because of COVID. Absolutely. And the reason why I would say absolutely is because if you have COVID and you get stressed about that, or your body goes into stress, it will automatically create digestive issues. Will the actual virus COVID affect your digestive issues? That I can't answer, but I can say that if you worry about getting it, which really, folks, let us not, like, if your immune system being strong is the healthiest or the best defense against COVID. Let's not be afraid of a flu virus. That's ultimately what it is. I do know people are dying from it, but it's still 98% recovery rate. And the majority, the large majority, over 80% are people over 80 years old that are passing away from it. And that is the same percentage of a flu. It's just more people are getting it because it's unfamiliar to us. So I'm saying this to say, not that I don't care about COVID, I'm just saying this to say, let's stop being fearful. So just being afraid, and then you catch it, and then you go into more fear because I have it. Am I going to live? Am I going to die? We have a COVID kit here that every person that's taken it has recovered incredibly from COVID. So there are natural remedies for everything. And the last question, unless there's any more, is diverticulitis reversible? Everything's reversible. But I have to tell you that picture a balloon after you've blown it up and then you let out the air, and you do that a few times. It's just not going to look the same as when it came out of the package, if that makes sense. So it might not be blown up anymore, but you probably would end up still having some diverticuli that are a little bit soft and bulging, simply because it's been blown up and inflamed. So, but the diverticulitis is when those bulges are now inflamed and become a problem. That is absolutely reversible. Could you still have some weak areas in your colon? Probably. Would you feel it anymore? Probably not. You probably wouldn't even know you had diverticulitis anymore. Is this something that happens overnight? Definitely not. This is a long journey. This is like, over a year of being very meticulous about the way you eat. In fact, I think everybody should be, but this is working really aggressively on your diet and really making some changes. And it doesn't mean you eat cardboard all your life. You eat wonderful, delicious plant-based foods, but we have to do it properly. And we also, I'd recommend you do a consultation so that you can get the right information for diverticulitis. So folks, my very quiet listening crowd, if I don't like this orange background, it's just that somebody was on my computer on the other side, so I couldn't use the green, but I don't think it's good for my complexion. Orange has never been my color. Anyway, if anyone has any questions, then we can end the session, and you don't have to put it in the chat. You can just take your mute off, and you're welcome to ask any questions at all. So quiet. Erica, did you have a question?
I did. Thank you. A friend of mine has chronic constipation, and she's been told to eat tons of fiber, but it doesn't seem to be doing her any good. Any suggestions?
Yeah, so where is her fiber intake coming from? Like, is she going with like a Fiber One cereal? She's eating fiber bars? Like, where is she getting her fiber from?
Not from natural product. Not. Well, she does eat fruits and vegetables, but she's saying it's mostly like all bran and bran flakes, and for breakfast, I think.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, so Erica, you can let your friend know that unfortunately the Fiber One cereals, the All Brand, the Bran Flakes, are all made from wheat, which creates more inflammation in the colon. So unfortunately, those are not good sources of fiber. So she would really need to change the diet in the sense of making sure she's not snacking, but she needs the fiber that would be found, like not even oatmeal is going to help that situation. Oatmeal can sometimes create constipation issues rather than helping to move bowels. So she should start her morning with the psyllium fiber and pull wheat out completely from her diet. And then
Okay.
also make sure that she's not having constipation creating food. So that's cheese. Like, is she eating any cheese? So cheese and wheat are really constipating. And how much meat does she have in her diet? Because if she has, meat in her diet, there's no fiber in that. So even though there's some fiber in the other things, because there's no fiber in the meat, that is also in the way of digestion. But I would recommend that she would take a teaspoon or a tablespoon of psyllium fiber in the morning. And then breakfast should be about 2 to 3 cups of fresh fruits, followed by anything other than wheat grains. And I would stay away from oatmeal. So just for a little while, oatmeal is fine for the average person, but not somebody who's constipated. So then she would have like a millet grain or a buckwheat grain, or some chia, something like that, or a gluten-free bread, slice of gluten-free bread. And she should wait an hour drinking only water. And at lunchtime, before she jumps into her main course, she has like a really nice big leafy green salad with no vinegars on it, no tomatoes or peppers for a while, just because of inflammation. But, cucumbers, celery, lettuce, but not like baby spinach and baby kale, or the spring mix. Those things aren't fibrous. It needs to have either romaine lettuce or green leaf lettuce. Those are the things that get the bowels moving. And then she eats her cooked meal. And she would probably notice, especially if she can fast in the evening, like have a really good 2 o'clock meal, if she can fast in the evening, because it's in the evening while we're sleeping that the digestive system goes into play. And so if her body's digesting food all night, it can't go through the waste process. Sorry, it's when we're sleeping that the waste system goes into play, not the digestive system. So the waste system goes into play, but if it's so busy digesting, the waste system doesn't function properly. And the last 2 things I would mention is for her to check how much water she's drinking, and if she's doing any kind of exercise or movement, because if she's not really exercising or moving around much, then it's going to be difficult to get those bowels moving.
Okay, am I supposed to remember all that?
Well, you can just send her to our website, and you know what? If you go to
I think I've got most of it. I'm convincing her to get over to a plant-based diet.
Yeah, it's $35 for 30 minutes. So
I'm sure she would go for that.
yeah, just to get her to do a consultation. But even if not, you can get like free information by going to our website and click on consultations, and my video of the 8 secrets of healing comes up. And if you watch that, it tells you exactly what I said, and then some. So there's
I've got the basics. I have watched that myself, and
yeah.
I just thought I would ask you because I'm going to talk to her later tonight, and I thought I would ask you while I was here.
No, that's great. And constipation is serious because it can, it's a recipe for cancer, because all of the toxins sit in the colon, and that's like the dirtiest place, and that's where pathogens and parasites and everything love to hang out, and
Right.
that is a recipe for cancer. So I'm glad you're checking for her. I have one last question here that's come through the chat. Is there any fruit or vegetables to avoid for prostate health? Definitely. So if you're struggling with any kind of prostate issues, you want to stay away from your nightshades. That is your tomatoes, your sweet peppers or your hot peppers, your potatoes, your eggplant. And then you want to lean towards more of your foods that contain zinc, your leafy green vegetables, especially your pumpkin seeds. So as far as anything to avoid, it's just really the nightshade vegetables. Everything else is fine.
Question?
Yeah, Jacinta, go ahead.
Yes, I heard you talk about babies spinach? It should not be in our green salad?
No, it can be in your green salad, but it can't be your green salad.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so it's fine to mix the baby spinach with some romaine or arugula or green leaf lettuce, but your green salad shouldn't be all baby spinach because it's so nutrient dense that it's not high enough in fiber to simply move the bowels. I mean, it's really high in nutrients, but it's just not enough fiber. Your lettuces don't have that many nutrients, but they have a lot of water and fiber. Baby spinach doesn't have a lot of water in it. Have you ever seen it go through the juicer? Like nothing comes out.
Right, right.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. I'm glad you clarified that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's nice to hear you, Jacinta. Does anybody else have any other questions? All right. Sandra, did you have a question?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming on. It's 8:12, so I know we went a little bit past time, but I'm grateful that I was able to answer so many questions. And then just want to remind you that you will see, if you do need to join that question and answer time, it'll be next Thursday at 8 o'clock. You do need to be a member to join, and you can just find that by going to the subscriptions page on our website and just signing up. It's only $10 a month. But thank you all. I hope this was valuable, and I hope you can now help others with this information on the road to healing. Have a good night.
Thank you.